who have been really. Oh, thank you, Catherine. You only just mentioned, Catherine, about the recording.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Catherine Lindsley. I'm the coordinator for Community Energy London. Just to let everyone know that we will be recording the session. It will go on our YouTube so that the people who couldn't attend today will be able to review it at a later date. If you don't want to be featured on it, just turn your cameras off and change your names if that's an issue. We won't be sharing like the beginning bit. This is just so I remember to put it on. But yeah, so just to let you all know. Back to you, Said.
Hi. Thank you. And for those who don't know me, I think we'll probably kickstart, and I've got a feeling we'll probably have some further people join us as we go on. And as I think Catherine mentioned, we've had some apologies sent to us this morning for people who couldn't make it for one reason or another. But what we'll be doing is we'll be promoting not only this video, but the other capacity raising videos and really shaping some of the stuff that we're talking about here in terms of some of the needs of Barnet. However, this will be open to all people and to try and find out a little bit more about community energy. And please feel free to drop any thoughts, comments, questions in the chat column, and we'll come to them as we go on through the meeting. Delighted to have people here today. As I mentioned, this is the first of four. I'm Syed Ahmed from Community Energy London. Our agenda for the day is as follows, and will come up very shortly. I think probably the heat is affecting people's computers. And I'll be giving a brief introduction to some of the work that Cell is doing. Ostensibly, the main presentation today will be
Sorry,
for my
just to
colleague
check,
Tanuja
can you see
Pandit.
this now?
Yeah, I can do now.
Thanks.
Yeah. So again, we're doing this in conjunction with the London Borough of Barnet. This was originally supposed to be during Barnet Climate Action Month, but something called the election pulled everybody's kind of calendars all apart. We're delighted to have Yogita Popout, who's the Programme Director for Culture and Sustainability at the London Borough of Barnet, who will be giving us some words about some of the ambitions Barnet have set out in their various programmes around climate and energy. Then we're very delighted to have Sarah Taggart of newly forming community energy group, Community Energy Barnet, which is I've had the pleasure to meet with the team there on a number of occasions, and that's always been a really rewarding experience. And then Tanuja, do you want to give us a wave, Tanuja?
Good
Tanuja
afternoon.
Pandit from Power at North London will be delivering the bulk of today's presentation, providing an introduction to community energy, and hopefully then we can open up to a series of conversations, in terms of what people may be wanting to know about how they might form their own project or their own group or the other kind of challenges associated in and around community energy. Are there any immediate comments that people want to make? Um, if not, we'll kind of throw ourselves into things. No, as I said, please feel free to drop things in the chat. Don't feel that you have to wait to the end of a presentation. If you raise your hand, I'll be watchful, and I'm sure Catherine will alert me, and then we can bring people in if there are points of interest. So if it's okay, I'm going to do a quick 5 minutes of a bit of an introduction to the work that we do before I hand over to Nikita, Sarah, and then Tanuja. So, as I mentioned, I'm the chair of Community Energy London. Slide, please, Catherine. We're a network of around about 45 community energy groups across London. Um, and there's a whole bunch of different groups there. Home Energy Action Lab in Hackney, N10 Energy Muswell Hill Sustainability Group, Power Up North London, that Tanuja's represented today, Allgate Solar Power, South East London Community Energy, Brixton Energy, and so on. So the network we formed in around about 2017. There were around about 10 or 15 groups at the time. And what we did was we worked with the mayor to help really set out a series of support measures for community energy, which has really helped grow the sector when outside of London there's a really diminishing of activity. Keep going, Catherine. Our job really is to work and liaise with local authorities, both council and officers, to highlight the what community energy projects and the groups can deliver. We've worked very closely on with the Greater London Authority on a funding program called LSEF, the London Community Energy Fund, and we're also working to influence national policy. So we've hosted a couple of visits for Ed Miliband, when he was still in opposition to a number of community energy projects around London. And we provided visits for previous ministers and other key stakeholders to understand why we think not only community energy, but the urban aspect of community energy is where limited often in terms of the size of our projects, but why they're still of huge value. Yeah, next slide, Catherine. The work that we do includes, we've got a peer mentoring scheme that we're helping Community Energy Barnet with very shortly. We've got a project map which provides some information on existing sites across London, which we're in a constant state of catch up on. We've got a 10-step guide, which Tanuja will be referring to later today, and various other bits and bobs. All of that is on our website, communityenergy.london. And as it says there in bold, we have one part-time coordinator, that's Catherine, who's paid through from, what's it called, the Lottery Climate Action Fund. And then we have a super active board of directors who really help take forward the work that we're doing. But we are constantly looking for further funding to kind of establish a bit more of a resilient organisation structure around Community Energy London. Slide, please, Catherine. I mentioned the Community Energy Fund. We've been working with the mayor and his team. That we've got 7 rounds of that to date, a total of £2.4 million of feasibility and capital funding, and something like 200 projects being supported. Increasingly, we're seeing a number of London boroughs bring through community energy funds. We were with our annual conference took place yesterday in Hackney. We were delighted to have colleagues both from Enfield and Barnet there. Ellen and Asher were there, and we were told about the latest round of the Hackney Community Energy Fund. Something like £382,000 will be announced next week by the relevant committee in Hackney, which will bring their funding to close to £1 million over the last 2 years. And the important thing about it is not only is it bringing new projects forward, it's really helping a whole series of new groups really kind of evolve and develop to help deliver a whole suite of kind of climate and environmental projects across the particular borough. Slide, please, Catherine. We're seeing an increasing number of projects. We're seeing an increasing diversity of projects. Luckily, we're seeing, as I mentioned, the local authorities and further new funders come through to support groups. We're seeing greater collaboration between groups because we're now working further with the private sector who have got bigger and more ambitious schemes, and no one group can deliver them. So our colleagues at Community Renewable Energy Wandsworth and Repowering London and Lambeth, they've just signed a deal with SGN to provide energy service in South London. And there are more ambitious projects being planned. We're seeing greater business recognition, as I mentioned, around the need for community energy, because as more and more of these companies want to work at the local level, they realize they don't always have the skills to interact with communities, and they need that in kind of interlocutor, that interface between themselves as a big company and communities to make sure they can find the right solutions for the right households, and recognizing the kind of challenges that various households may have on one street, but from house to house they may be different. We're also seeing a number of new partners come forward asking community and groups for support. That can be from the faith sector and a number of schools, academies, and also, the health sector and so on. So there's a real kind of sense that there's an opportunity here, community energy, to work with more and more partners. The big challenge we have is actually kind of responding to that demand at the moment. Slide, please, Catherine. Just to say, one of the things that we did, we worked in 2022 with the Greater London Authority. The GLA have spent an awful lot of money on data sets around solar or around building energy efficiency and heat maps. And if you go to our website, communityenergy.london, this map is freely accessible. This is the London Borough of Barnet, and again, this is our area of focus today. So we've identified 574 community buildings in Barnet. That is a total of 53 megawatts of solar rooftop capacity. And if they were realised, just the solar element would save you something like 11,000 tonnes of CO2. When you go on the map, it's fully interactive. So each one of those blobs, if you clicked on 20, and we might do a little demo of this later on, actually, if we get time, it will then spread out to what those particular buildings are, what their energy characteristics are, what their address is. And we've just launched a version 2 of this map this week, where groups who are registered with Community Energy London can actually populate each site with further information bespoke to that particular site. So we're really building up a rich resource of information on the community energy sector across London. Slide, please. And just to say, that works for every borough in London, every parliamentary constituency in London, and every ward in London. So when we presented that map to ward councillors, they've been really interested because, of course, we don't know the sites as well as they do, and it really engages them in a whole series of different thought processes around climate and energy within their ward. Last year, just to say, in the House of Commons, we launched a vision for community energy in London with our aim and ambition for 1,000 projects across the capital by the end of this decade. We're up to about 250 now, so we're talking about a quadrupling. 1,000 projects sounds really challenging. But if you think London has 33 boroughs, that's only 30 projects per borough. We've already got boroughs like Hackney saying that we want to have 50, and I think they're nearly achieving that target now within the space of 2 years. So actually, if anything, I've had some members say, "Side, you're not being nearly ambitious enough." Slide, please, Catherine. And just reflecting that, we had our conference yesterday. And in fact, we've just found out our conference was hosted by Councillor Mete Koban of Hackney Energy. And it was just announced this morning that he's the new deputy director, new deputy mayor for energy for London. So he will be the mayor in charge of energy environment issues. So we're really pleased. We weren't aware of that. We actually had the deputy mayor for energy environment as a strong supporter of community energy, providing a keynote talk at our conference yesterday. But at the same time as we were hosting our conference, the new Secretary of State for Energy announced that GB Energy, the vehicle that the Labour Party have said will take forward their ambitions in energy, will oversee the biggest expansion of community energy in British history through our local power plan. So we're seeing a real step change in senior stakeholder support in looking at community energy, and I'm really hoping Barnet can be a key part of that as we go forward. I think I'll stop there and hand over to Yogita Popat, who's the Programme Director for Culture and Sustainability for Barnet. Yogita, over to you.
Thanks, Said. I'm really, really pleased to be here, and I don't have any slides because I don't want to take up too much time today and talk to you. I really want us to get into the real detail, which Sarah and Tanuja can do, and I don't have the details, so I'm going to be really honest with you here. So Barnet has an ambitious target to be a net zero council by 2030 and as a borough by 2042, which sounds a long time away, but it's only about 17 years. And Barnet is one of the largest boroughs in London. So we have almost 390,000 residents that live here. So not only are we a huge borough in terms of the number of people that live there, but actually we're a huge borough in terms of its size. And about a third of our borough is green, it's green belt. So it makes it really difficult. We call it a bit like a croissant, where the middle bit is all green, or a donut and the middle bit is green. So that makes it really hard. We have 85% of our businesses are small or medium enterprises. So that means there are less than 5 people that work there. So we've got this huge population. 14% of our population are Jewish, 12% are Muslim, massive demographic, really diverse population. So it makes it a very exciting space to be. We've committed to supporting residents, communities and businesses to access grants and support that support and make energy use more sustainable and affordable. So actually things like community energy communities really enable us to sort of increase the uptake of solar panels in solar power in our boroughs. So very, very excited. We launched a citizens assembly last year, and one of the recommendations in that was around housings, buildings and energy, really. And Sarah was on the Housings, Buildings and Energy Community Action Group. And I think some of those conversations in that group enabled us to be sitting here today. And then through the conversations that we've had with Saeed to really sort of think about feasibility. So I think that this project really enables us to think about how we bring cleaner energy to the borough and sort of reduce our emissions, but actually think about those wider co-benefits of like the cost of living crisis, how we think about, you know, warmer homes, cooler homes. Like today, we definitely need cooler homes. So actually, these kind of projects really help us think about those co-benefits. So I'm not actually going to really talk much more, but we're really, really happy that we're co-producing these peer learning sessions with Community Energy London. And that we're really looking forward to. I think there's another 3 to go. So there's 2 more online. And then there's one in-person event next week in Muswell Hill. So please do sign up to those. And I did see there's a chat, someone's put in the chat about how we can help do sort of allow or bring community energy to other parts of the UK. And actually, this is exactly what that's about. We're here to learn from each other. None of us have, well, I'm hoping, other than Saeed and Tanuja, who probably have all of the answers, we're all learning on this journey with you. So, you know, let's all learn, let's collaborate, because actually we can't do this alone. Our vision is to become one of London's most sustainable boroughs. So we need every borough on this call, every individual on this call to go on that journey with us. I'm really pleased that Sarah's here, because we're so happy that Community Energy Barnet is coming here. I know it's sort of in the process of happening, but let's say it's already here. So Sarah, your work in that is brilliant. And Tanuja, I'm really looking forward to learning from you. I'm going to hand back over to Saeed.
Perfect. And I'm going to hand straight over to Sarah. Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Sarah Taggart. I'm really excited to give you an update on our efforts to set up Barnet's first community energy group. As Yogita just said, Barnet's one of the biggest boroughs in London in terms of population, and it also has many rooftops that are perfect for solar panels. So we've got a team of dedicated individuals, all volunteers together. Some of them have years of experience working in the energy industry sector as academics as well. We're all long-term Barnet resident, strong links to the community, and we all share a passion for tackling climate change. So what we're doing, we're in the process of setting up a community benefit society, and the reason for this is it would allow us to apply for grant funding and to issue community share offers. We've also had a great opportunity to partner with Repairing London, and they've secured grant funding to complete feasibility studies on 3 schools in Barnet. So that's been really exciting. I've actually been up on the rooftop of a local secondary school recently, and we're just waiting for the results of these surveys at present. We've also been working with Barnet Council, especially Ellen has been giving us lots of help, so thank you, Ellen. They've been really supportive, and we're really excited about hopefully contributing to the net zero goals. So we've sort of had discussions about this carbon offset fund and Barnet potentially setting up a fund to support community energy, which Said's just been talking about how that's happening in other parts of London. And that would be on the understanding that our feasibility studies can demonstrate tangible carbon savings, which I'm confident they will. We understand that might take some time. So we've got a couple of priorities at present. Firstly is to keep working with the council to find a way to secure this funding. And we also want to seek other sources of grant funding. Because we really want to offer a good, attractive deal to schools so that it's worth schools hosting solar panels on their rooftops and they really see the benefits. Because working as a governor in a school, I'm really aware of how tight budgets are for schools at the minute. So we want to sort of maximize the value for schools by finding as much grant funding as we can. There's a couple of areas where we'd love help. We really need some sort of legal support in setting up the CBS, just so we can fully understand all the intricacies and responsibilities. And we're also looking for a treasurer who could commit to working with us as a volunteer. And also we want to find people from other parts of Barnet who are keen to join us. And the group that we've got together so far all come from Brian Barnet, North Finchley, Whetstone, so all sort of quite a small area of Barnet. So if you know of anyone from other parts who are interested, that would be great. Yeah, that's all I want to say today. So thank you.
No, thanks, Sarah. I mean, behind Sarah's comments is lies a whole bunch of work that her and colleagues have taken forward in a relatively short period of time. So I think Sarah's own journey is actually volunteering for another group, and then all of a sudden it being that whole process being hijacked to form her own group. So well done on her and the rest of the colleagues. And I should say one of the things I find is that whenever I meet with groups, the potential to learn so much more is huge because we just met on Tuesday and the bunch of people who've come together as around Community Energy Barnet, as Sarah rightly said, are hugely knowledgeable, bring an awful lot of like experience and depth of knowledge to actually some of the things that we need to consider. And just from an officer and Barnet perspective, these are individuals who are fantastic to harness as part of the process of what you're wanting to do in your broader ambitions around sustainability. And you know there must be networks of many many more of these, and it's a challenge for us I think in terms of part of these events to get out there and bring more of these people into the discussion. Okay, thank you again, Sarah. We'll hand over straight to Tanuja. Tanuja.
Thank you. Catherine's going to share my slides. I just wanted to say while Catherine's doing that, there's so much to say in an introduction to community energy. So I've tried to cherry pick some key areas that I feel will be of interest to anybody wanting to set up a community energy group. But I think you'll probably get most of the value from this session in the Q&A at the end. But here we go. So I'm Chief Executive of Power Up North London. We've been going since 2015, and there's been a lot of activity, as you will see over the next few slides. So I wanted to start with Chris Kidmore because he was commissioned by the previous government to do an independent review of the government's approach to delivering net zero. And he published his report in January 2023. And there was a lot of extensive data and work included in that report. It was delivered in a short space of time, really impressive. And it was a big thumbs up for community energy at a time where we were feeling a little bit unloved by the forces, of the time. So he talked very much about the role of community energy in delivering projects, either that were led or in part controlled by communities, about the contribution we could make to net zero, and about moving towards a goal of self-sufficiency. So this was music to our ears. And moving on to the next slide, I wanted to also give you a perspective from somebody who is very much at the operations end of this. So this is Imogen Sykes, operations lead for People Powered Retrofit, which is based in Manchester, and it's very much about retrofitting local homes. They are a community benefit society, and Imogen says that it's all about local communities and individuals shaping and owning their own solutions. So you're starting to see some common themes emerging here, and this is essentially where community energy starts to play a key role, which is giving local people ownership of local energy generation, some control over their environment, and helping to build resilient communities. So we'll talk some more about that in the slides to come. So the next slide, Catherine. I wanted to just give you some real examples of projects that have been delivered. So this is Greater Manchester Community Renewables delivering a school solar project. And here's the photo opportunity at Happy Kids, a school that has solar, hopefully saving in bills, as well as, of course, lower carbon emissions. And that's what it's all about. Next slide, please. This is another slide from People Powered Retrofit to show that just look at the number of people in that room. And this is all about engaging people in community action to mitigate climate change in different ways. People Powered Retrofit are all about retrofitting homes. And you can see there's a huge level of interest there. So this is another area where community energy groups can play a key role in informing and engaging communities in the area of retrofit. Next slide, please. And then, of course, there's so much that we can do in terms of energy efficiency advice. So Southeast London Community Energy is a huge player in this area. They do lots of work on fuel poverty. You can see in the picture at the bottom there, that's about an energy cafe that they're running for people who might be struggling with fuel poverty, people on low incomes. There are also webinars being run about energy efficiency. So I'd say look out for these, because there's some really good stuff that happens either through CEL directly or CEL's members. There's always some really useful sessions being run from time to time. So, keep a lookout for those. Bottom right is an image from Caxton House Community Centre, where I was involved and continue to be involved in one-to-one and group energy efficiency advice with local people. So there are many, many ways in which community groups get involved in providing advice to local people. Next slide. And so this is just a summary of what we are trying to do here. Most of us are here because we really care about the planet. We want to do something to improve the environment. People often talk about doing something for the next generation. This is about local ownership. It's about mitigating and reducing fuel poverty. And of course, as I said earlier, building more resilient communities. So all round good thing to do is community energy. Moving on to the next slide. This is a useful slide that came in the State of the Sector report that Community Energy England published last week. And rather than, not expecting you to plow through this, but just to say, just a few numbers from this that I'd like to pick out. The 583 organizations that are involved in community energy, that's an impressive number. 69,500 members across the UK, significant savings in energy bills. So if you're looking to set up a community energy group, the good news is you're not alone. Lots of other organizations out there have done it. And as I want to say in the next few slides, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So really, you can be at one end of the spectrum with just individuals coming together to deliver a project and possibly not even incorporating as an entity, to going for the incorporation route or something even more complex than that, which we can look at. So next slide, please, Catherine. So incorporation is something that Sarah mentioned, that you're thinking of setting up as a community benefit society, and you've had support from Repowering London to do that, and that's excellent. Incorporation offers some benefits, clearly limited liability for the people involved. You may need to incorporate in order to enter into legal contracts, in order to borrow money, in order to own property. So there are various benefits. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, because really you need to evaluate on a structure by structure basis which of these forms makes the most sense for your organization. And this is where Community Energy London's 10-step guide will provide you with more information, but also possibly where it might be worth having conversations with other community energy groups that have gone down this route, to sort of talk about why they chose that particular structure. As I've said here on the slide, the majority of CEL member groups are community benefit societies, but that doesn't have to be the case. Some structures are less flexible, in the sense that you will not have an asset lock structure if you have a cooperative society, whereas if you have a community benefit society, you would. You cannot raise shares through share issues if you're a CIC or a charity, but you can do that as a CBS or some of the other structures. So these are all the sorts of pros and cons that you need to evaluate. And so I would suggest it needs to be done on a case-by-case basis. And clearly, as Said alluded there earlier, to the work that Sarah's been doing, to incorporate is a step, quite a big step, involves a lot of resource, lots of time, can be complex. So these are all considerations when you're considering whether you want to incorporate or not. So moving on from that, Catherine, I wanted to quickly share 2 or 3 examples of organizations that have already, some of them have been mentioned here, and some of you may be aware of them. Now, Repowering is one of the largest, if possibly not the largest, community energy group in London. It started in 2011, actually, with residents coming together in Brixton, and then formally in its current structure, it was set up in 2013. But if you think about the residential action in 2011 to create a community-owned energy generating organization. That was pretty radical, I would say, and really forward thinking, and extremely well done to repowering. And this is an organization that helps to build the community energy sector in London by helping other organizations to set up as cooperatives. They're doing a lot of work on fuel poverty and supporting deprived communities. And they also do employment training, which I think may distinguish them from some of the others, because others haven't done that to the same extent, though are maybe moving into this area too. Next slide, please, Catherine. This is SE24, or Sustainable Energy 24, formed in October 2014. We believe that this group of Lambeth and Southwark residents were all cycling enthusiasts, which is probably where this all started. And their vision is very much around sustainable energy for their borough, creating local enterprise through local sourcing and involving local businesses, and then social engagement, supporting people who are in fuel poverty and so on. So that's SA24. And then next slide, please, Catherine. I couldn't possibly not mention my own. So Power Up North London, we emerged from the transition town movement in Kentish Town and Highgate. Our vision is very much, though we operate in most boroughs north of London, or we can operate in most boroughs out in North London, a lot of our work is in Camden and Islington, where we have strong relationships with the local councils, and we talk about supporting their missions to become net zero carbon boroughs. Of course, we're about local ownership of renewable energy generation. We've done a range of community share offers, which provide additionality of funding if the council wants to think about new sources of funding. And then we have, in common with other community energy groups, our own community energy fund, through which we've supported some local green projects. So lots of common themes emerging across these different community energy groups. And so, there are many, many examples and many ways to do this. Next slide, please. I just thought that rather than dwell on this, which I'm not expecting you to read this, useful in your spare time to think about how South East London Community Energy have framed their aims and values as an organization. They talk very much about developing sustainable projects for the community, local generation. They also talk about a just transition, which I haven't mentioned specifically, and I think is in fact an implicit sort of understanding amongst most community energy groups, is how do we support a just transition to net zero. So I wanted to put that in there, and then you can read this another time. Next slide, please, Catherine. So this slide to say very much that there are, and this is across the country now, so I'm sort of jumping up from London and community energy groups in London to the kind of national picture here. There are all sorts of shapes and sizes of community energy groups. So from what we are calling the DIY approach, which is entirely possible, individuals coming together, not necessarily incorporating or possibly incorporating. We mentioned Celsi and the work they do, and repowering, you mentioned Power Up North London. Well, here's Energy for All, which is an organization that has helped to spawn 33 independent renewable energy cooperatives. This is a massive organization, over 17,000 members. Solar for Schools, they are effectively an enabling organization that either work directly or through partners to help to deliver solar panels on school roofs. And Communities for Renewables is doing something similar, but not just focused on schools. So this is a CIC, as it says here. So lots and lots of different types of structures and scope for you to think about what some of the possibilities might be. Next slide, please. And then getting down to the projects themselves, I might in a second, how much time do I have, Said?
No, you're absolutely fine. Carry on, Tanisha.
Can I go to the Power Up North London website for a minute? Might just be, Catherine, if you can take us there and back quickly. I just wanted to share with you some detail on the projects that we've delivered. And while Catherine is doing that, I'm trying to make a slight distinction here between what we are calling infrastructure projects and community advice projects. And the infrastructure projects are the ones where there is a significant amount of capital expenditure involved. And the particular example that I had on the slide was of Caxton House Community Centre in Archway, where we replaced all the windows with triple glazed windows. We put in a 50 kilowatt heat pump, and we introduced mechanical ventilation with heat recovery units. So that was, to me, a significant infrastructure project on which we spent £300,000, all of which, in fact, was raised through grant funding. And I can explain in the Q&A why that was. So this is our panel projects page, where we're putting all of our project information, up-to-date project information, so you can happily peruse this at your leisure. These are our solar projects that are owned by our cooperative and our members. So these would be where we had community share offers and a mixture of grant funding to fund these projects. Our most recent one was Talika Community Sports Centre in Camden, and this was installed last year. We've just successfully completed a share offer for 2 Camden schools, and the installation on Regent High School in Camden is starting on 29th of July, and that'll be followed hot on its heels by Parliament Hill School in Camden, which will be installed a few weeks later. So these are some of our solar projects where we own the solar panels. Just going down slightly, scrolling down, Catherine, thank you. These are projects where we supported the end-to-end installation of the solar panels, but we don't actually own them. So the site would have raised the money in different ways. It could have been surplus funding, could have been a grant, all sorts of things, could have been a donation. This is where we project managed end-to-end the solar projects. Further down, Catherine. So moving away from solar to the advice projects, these are sort of multiple different types of community advice projects, from training people to be energy champions in the community, energy advice. Actually, community energy winter support was a one-off thing where we raised money through a crowdfunder. This is through CEL, and then we used the money to buy low-cost measures that we distributed to people. All sorts of different projects here that you can look at another time. Further down, Catherine, I think these are our decarbonization advice projects, where we worked with technical consultancies to deliver decarbonization reports. There were reasons for each of these as to why we got involved and how it was funded. And there was also a very interesting report on how you could bring down energy consumption in schools, which I would recommend if people are working with schools. That's an interesting one to look at. And then heat decarbonization, this was the Caxton House project, a 3-year project which we delivered in phases and which we completed in December last year. And then below that, we've got the various feasibility projects, which we've now stopped showing individually because there's far too many of them. So that's it. Thank you, Catherine. We can go back to the presentation. But I just thought it'd be useful to give you a sense for the breadth of work that we've been doing, the different types of projects that we've got involved with, and happy to answer questions about them in the Q&A. So infrastructure projects, community advice projects, 2 slightly different things. And in the community advice projects, you can fit, retrofit, which is a mixture of advice and implementation. You can fit energy efficiency advice to the able to pay category of people. And of course, you can fit the energy advice to people who are in the low income, fuel poor category. So moving on from the Caxton House project here. So here are examples of us doing energy advice work in the streets in Kentish Town earlier this year. These are 2 fantastic local ladies from Somers Town in Camden, with whom I've done a lot of work with local residents, and they have enabled us to engage local residents, being local residents themselves and having a lot of sort of trust with the community. This is me delivering an energy advice session at one of the sharing spaces that our sister organization Think and Do runs in Camden. And again, us on the streets. And here's a little banner advertising our upcoming share offers. This was I think in February 2024. And this one here is just some snapshots of the lighting project that I did with the 2 ladies, Halima and Tuli, where we fitted LED lighting in 150 homes in Camden. This was in 2023. Yeah, so we're estimating total carbon saving from that as 6 tons a year. The Caxton House project was 18 tons a year. So, heat projects, a lot more carbon saving. but nevertheless, really important work, in both cases. Moving on, just wanted to quickly talk about the support that's available. There's plenty of it out there. There are resources on the Community Energy London website, Community Energy England. There's the Centre for Sustainable Energy Bristol. I love their stuff. It's really good material. You can form partnerships with other community energy groups or just other community organizations, as we've done. Power Up North London has done with Think and Do and with Caxton House. Memberships of organizations that can be useful. Of course, your local council can support you through carbon offset funding by helping you with contacts to suppliers and other organizations, maybe local businesses that want to support you as part of their ESG programs. There's a lot that's out there. So it's really deciding what sort of help you need. And then perhaps CEL can help to direct you. There's various ways to do this. Next slide, please, Catherine. I'm not going to dwell on this, but just to say that there are lots of different funders out there worth looking at who some of them were. The BIFA award I'll pick out because this organization was a new one to us at Caxton House, and we raised 75,000 for the heat pump at Caxton House through them. They benefit, their funding is for communities that live near landfill sites. They have a certain sort of radius within which they will offer the funding. So if you're outside that, you won't qualify. So again, worth looking at what the qualifying criteria are for these different funders. Remember that this sector is very much driven by volunteers. It still is. And so, extremely important to build that volunteer network and to manage that volunteer network. As probably was mentioned earlier, perhaps in relation to Barnet, but it's also true of Power Up North London, I'm sure other community energy groups. There are some fantastic volunteers coming forward now. Some of these people are working full-time in the renewable sector in different capacities, but what they really love is the direct access to frontline projects that we give them. So they just love working on these projects, and we're getting a lot from our volunteers, but you also need to manage them and give them interesting work. We've also had support from local architectural practices who help us pro bono with planning applications. A local technical consultancy did an acoustic report for the Caxton House heat pump for free. I mean, all of this was worth several £1,000s, which we didn't have to pay for. And we had very high quality professional support. And of course, there's Community Energy London's network. So just to say, the 10-step guide, I would recommend that you go through that. There's plenty of material there. And finally, just start. Just take the first step. Things will happen. Support will come. And before you know it, you will have a working community energy group that's delivering for Barnet. So back to you, Sai, then.
Thank you, Tanuja. That was a really great run through of an awful lot of things. And just to say, I first met Tanuja when, Power Up North London was developing their first kind of fairly ambitious projects. But when you get that run through of the extent of projects they've now developed through building upon their initial ambition, it's quite mind-boggling. And just to say, I'm also the chair of the organisation that Tanuja mentioned, Power Up North London. When I first got involved with them, they were 4 part-time people. They're now 25 FTE. So Yugiti, just to say, that's 25 people focused in 4 boroughs.
Power Up North London side, you mean Chelsea or repowering?
I mean repowering, I beg your pardon. Repowering is 25 FTE. They're working, in fact, I've just had a board meeting this morning where they're desperately trying to get new people in as well because of the demand. So it just goes to show you that ability to really harness local expertise and develop your own partners. And I do mean plural, because I do think it's more than one organization that you need. And it could be, an organization that's more focused on retrofit as compared to solar, as compared to anything else. So I do think officers do need to bear that in mind. There's a couple of other things I wanted to flag up from Tanuja's talk, but I'm just turning to the chat column. There are a couple of questions about Aaron Isaac. So Aaron's asking, are there any batteryless projects in the interest of lower cost and more sustainability? Most of the solar projects we've talked about tend not to have batteries. However, just to qualify, a number of those from a few years ago would have got something called the feed-in tariff, which is a government support mechanism to make sure that those projects were more financially viable. The feed-in tariffs provided a premium by the energy supplier to the generator for every unit generated. That no longer exists. So that's reduced the financial viability of those projects. But at the same time, we've seen the cost of solar continue to fall, and also energy prices have increased, which means that the rate of return of those projects have gone back to being quite viable. There are still challenges associated with that, but the other thing is many of the community energy projects have managed to source capital grant funding, which again makes the project more financially viable. Aaron's next question was about embodied energy. This one is asked quite a lot on lots of the events we go on, and typically most of the academic, supplier, trade association, and independent assessors that I've seen, and please do look on this online yourself, typically say that the amount of energy associated with actually building a solar panel it represents about 2% of the energy that the solar panel produces over its lifetime. And just to say, we've got now solar panels designed for 20 or 25 years, and they're now going beyond that. And we're seeing new solar panels with reduced embodied energy and higher energy efficiency output or a power output for the amount of space that they take on. So all of those are suggesting that there's only one direction in that. They're actually becoming more environmentally useful as generation technologies. Let me very quickly pivot to just one other thing, which is I just want to show people two things. One is Tanu just mentioned, hopefully it's going to pop up. Catherine, can you see the 10-step guide there?
Yep. I also have the potential map ready to go when you want
Thank
it.
you. So just to mention, the 10-step guide was referred to by Tanuja a couple of times. This is a free resource on our website. We're just updating it on a few things which will be done early next week, but this gives you an idea of what a community energy group is, why you should set up one, how to build your team, establish your governance, get funding, and so on. So there's an awful lot of detail there. Also, in terms of the types of projects, on our publications website, we have how we've got community energy groups actually contribute to guides on what you need to do if you want to run an energy advice workshop. So this is our version 2 of all these guides from last year. The original versions were made in 2021, so equally on solar PV. And we actually even had a government official sent an email to us and said this was the Get Best guide that they'd found online in helping them understand some of the basics of establishing a solar project. And in 2025, we'll be looking to update these again on a 2-year basis, just because simply the market changes that much. Actually, Catherine, I'm going to share my own screen on the map because I want to drive it a little bit, if that's okay. So bear with me just 10 seconds.
I should have known. Just to say, while you're finding that, on our website, we also have a series of case studies looking at different projects across London that have happened over the last 5 or so years. They go quite in depth about the costs and feasibility studies and how many panels and everything like that. So do take a look at them as well. Back to you, Side.
Thanks for that reminder, Catherine. So I mentioned the potential map. So I showed a screenshot of it before, but again, here you have an outline of the London Borough of Barnet. And again, I'd mentioned in the screenshot 574 community buildings. So if we pick somewhere here, let's just pick this 38, you zoom in and it's in Totteridge, and that then zooms out. So then if we pick this 14 here, that will show you 14 buildings. Click on one and it will give you an idea of the building. Here we have something I'm not familiar with, Queenswell Federation. And what we've done is if you look at the number of the energy characteristics there, this number here gives an indication from GLA's London Solar Opportunity Map and what about the potential solar PV potential that roof is. We've tend to found it's slightly on the higher side, and we've got new data sets that will probably look to that, but we can provide a range. And obviously you need to do a full survey of everything, but what it does do is enter into a conversation with these buildings and their building owners about what the potential might be. We have what the annual assembly generation might be, what the estimated roof area is. And then from the London heat map, another GLA tool, we've got the idea of what their heat demand will be and what their heat consumption will be over the year. And if you click on that, which I won't do, it will then give you a link to the energy performance certificate for that particular building. So that's that. And so again, and what we can do is here we can do it by parliamentary constituency. And I think we've just about updated for the election the new parliamentary constituency. So here's Chipping Barnet here. And so we will be next week writing to every MP in London on the potential for the solar in their constituency. And to our local authority colleagues here, we can do it by every ward as well. So if you look again in Barnet, we can go to Totteridge. I'm picking on the same area all the time, but in Totteridge ward, we can go and see there is a total of 26 community buildings in Totteridge, 2 megawatts of solar potential. And again, we've only chosen solar because it was an easier kind of technology to utilize, and we have the data sets for it. We don't have the money, whereas this tool from the GLA probably costs well into 6 figures. And after a couple of chats with them, they gave us the data all free of charge for this tool. So again, if we go in this 12 here, we can then go to the Woodside Park Council and say, we've got all these buildings, and they tend to know them much better than we do. So again, let's look at this school here, Finchley Catholic High School, and we think the potential there is around about 219 kilowatts. And then that opens up an opportunity for a conversation with them about the potential for solar on their site. And the best thing is, and actually we've been doing this in some other parts of London, is could you actually do a cluster? So if you know that they're all beside one another, rather than doing a per site basis, could you talk about doing a project over a series of different buildings, which with economies of scale will mean that actually the installation costs are that much, hopefully more cheaper. I'm just looking at the chat column again. We've got a nice comment from Lee about a great looking toolkit. And Lee, I did say, you know, if you're welcome to come along to our Community Energy Barnet meeting. Then we've got a question from Vera. Let me see if I can answer Vera's comment very quickly, because that was for Barnet. And just if our Barnet colleagues don't mind, I will wander over eastwards, he said, hopefully, and into Enfield, and Vera, you'll see everything that I showed for Barnet is exactly the same.
Yeah, I found it already on the website. Okay. Thank you.
So, you know, and what we will be doing, hopefully, Yogita and our colleagues at Barnet and also at Enfield, is that we'll be hoping to do community energy potential maps for each borough. So that will go down to a level of detail to talk about what that potential is, but then going to me to understand what does that mean? Where are some of the hotspots? Where are some of the most attractive sites? What sites are clearly really good ones that community energy groups would welcome local authorities support? And one thing that actually Tanuja has been particularly successful is on a couple of share rounds, and maybe Tanuja, you can talk about your latest share offer. Then you've actually had Camden Council issue press release promoting the share rounds to residents. But Tanuja, could you just talk about your latest share round that you've completed in the last few weeks?
So we were looking to raise 130,000 for solar on 2 secondary schools in Camden, Regent High School and Parliament Hill School. We had £75,000 in grants towards those 2 sites, and so the 130 really you need to add that figure on to see what had to be the funding that we had to find in total, and in the share offer this time, for the very first time, we had 2 local businesses invest, and they put in £70,000 towards the total figure. So in fact, they slightly exceeded what we raised from the community. But my sense is very much that as we go forward, we're going to have to bring in local businesses to support our share offers, because there's only so many times you can go to the same individuals in the community. And we do get repeat investors, and we are continuing to see that, but that's a small group. And so, and also in order to market our share offer to a broad segment of people, requires quite a lot of resource. And I would suggest that, that's something that community energy groups typically would not have a huge amount of resource for, but it is required. So in fact, we've learned a fair bit from this particular share offer about how we would reach a broader segment of our potential investors next time.
And just to say, Lee, I'll bring you on in a second. We've done some initial analysis which we need to update and publish, but for every pound that the mayor gave through the London Community Energy Fund, for the projects that were realised, the group managed to bring in between £5 and £7 from local investors. So, if you think about the best part of, £1 million may have delivered from the mayor, may have delivered so many schemes. The group's probably brought in £5, £6, £7 million in terms of Londoners investing into the capital for those projects. Lee, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so my interest is from the personal investor side of things. Do the people here generally feel that there's a danger of them getting squeezed out for economic necessity as the community energy market grows, that you're actually going to have to look for more bigger funders, and the emphasis of local people owning the local energy infrastructure might start to fall away? Is that something you are worried about or not worried about?
I've got a thought on that, Tanuja, but you want to answer that?
I think it's a fair challenge, but I think the local investors are going to continue to be part of the our focus and our target. All I'm suggesting is, if we had given ourselves longer, we'd have done better in terms of local investors. We just had a very small window. I think we had 4 weeks in which we were trying to raise all this funding, and there's a whole host of reasons why that happened. And we hadn't done, we were actually embargoed from doing any marketing until we actually launched our share offer. So it really was not an ideal set of circumstances. And I think that's led to this particular outcome. But I would actually like to go for potentially an even smaller sized minimum investment. It was £250 this time. And to really extend our publicity and our marketing to a broader swathe of local people. But if we're going for significantly larger amounts, I feel we are going to have a mix of local businesses investing in there, because it's just not going to be possible for us to and a lot of our funding comes with, solar installs on schools come with very tight timelines. You've got to do it in this particular window in the summer holidays, and it's all incredibly backed up. So you then work back from that to when do we need to raise the money, when and you do all of that, you do all those calculations, and you're left with a very tiny window. So I think all of those practical considerations also have an effect, but we are going to continue to need local people investing, because that's really the ethos of what we are about.
I think I'm going to draw the meeting to a close, but that was a really good question. Also, just one thing, Lee, it would be a nice problem to have. So I would say that I genuinely think we are just scratching the surface, and the reason I say that is that the recognition and understanding of Londoners and general people about community energy is still very low. So the fact that Tanuja's project raised under difficult circumstances, the amount of money it did in only a month, with still relatively low recognition, kind of gives us hope that actually once we get more Londoners understanding about community energy, and in our particular area of, at the moment of this meeting about Barnet, I sense anecdotally a very low recognition of some of the technologies and community energy in general, but also a number of Barnet, and Gita talks about the demographic. We also have a number of people with significant amount of savings who'd want to invest in projects, in assets that they use, community clubs, GP surgeries, arts venues, places of worship. So I think in Barnet, we've got a really powerful story to tell. And I actually think that once Barnet gets going, it could leapfrog a number of other boroughs and areas very, very quickly. We've got a minute over time, but just to say, just remind people, we have 3 other events planned. We have 2 further online ones, developing a community solar project, where my colleague Etta from Repowering London will be talking about that next Tuesday lunchtime, again online. Then we've got a really excellent one on community-led energy efficiency retrofit, how we get domestic homes, how we get homes more energy efficient, a week today, next Friday lunchtime. with our colleagues from Home Energy Action Lab. And then on the Saturday, we've got a visit to a community energy project in neighbouring Haringey at Muswell Hill Methodist Church. I've been there. It's a great site. Fingers crossed the weather will be with us. It's 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. We have a range of speakers from Muswell Hill Sustainability Group and a tour of the site. I really do recommend it. So if you can make it, great. If you can promote it to others, that would be really great as well. No, this material will be available on our website. We're really looking to promote these events with other Barnet colleagues.